Well, how's everything
Okay.
going? Where in the world are you?
I am in Los Angeles actually
Oh, good.
at the moment.
Oh, good. Well, we are so happy to have you on with us today because we need to talk about some mind magic. It's such a cool book, and been getting a lot of people that are just loving this stuff, right?
Yeah, actually it's sort of amazing. The book ended up going to the top 100 on Amazon briefly, but amazingly, it simultaneously was number one in six categories: meditation, neuroscience, spirituality, self-help, new thought, which I don't know what that means, and biology. So yeah, it's been quite amazing. And the other interesting thing is that the actual Audible version has actually outsold the hardcover sales. So that seems unusual.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all that. That's very, very exciting. And it's got to be nice, of course, Into the Magic Shop people just absolutely love, but this one, I mean, it in the same way, it starts out very, very striking, striking one liner, and then off we go, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, I think that's one of the things I certainly learned early on was, how do you capture the reader's attention immediately, right? And and obviously, the statement I made in at the start of this book is in fact quite uh, profound in the sense that so many people look outside of themselves to get guidance or quote unquote to make things happen for them or to change their lives. And the power is within yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, well, there's a lot of people, as you say in the book, are manifesting already and they don't even know it, right?
Exactly. And I think that's really key because people don't appreciate how their childhoods often result in them carrying baggage, which gets imprinted on their personalities and which is responsible for many, many of the decisions that people make in their lives, whether in general, in regard to their career, or also in regard to their partners. And that can be good in many cases, but it can also be horrible. And if you have no insight or self awareness, um, that makes it very difficult to change.
Mhm. Well, and it's a practice that I think people have all kinds of different theories on the best way to do it. But what in your mind, what is the best way to manifest or to get in those practices, those routines?
Well, I think there are a couple aspects. One you mentioned, which is what have you already manifesting, and try to understand what habits or what's been imprinted on you that make you make decisions. The other is uh, understanding the difference between what you want and what you need. And what I mean by that is many people, uh, unfortunately, have been uh, made to believe that having things uh, for external affirmation is what leads to happiness. And unfortunately, nothing could be further from the truth. Our society has created a narrative that defines quote unquote success, equivalent to happiness, relating to power, position, money. And a lot of people chase that. And of course, the challenge is that they get to the top and there's nothing there. Uh, External affirmation doesn't fill the need that each of us has in terms of who we are, why we're here. And what I tell people oftentimes is when they chase this narrative seeking external affirmation, this is out of fear or a fear of judgment or being rejected. And so demonstrating that, quote unquote, you're worthy by the acquisition of things never results in happiness. And this is because the motivation is related to I want to be recognized. I want this. If I just have that, people will like me. And in some ways, this is the nature of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, which of course is hedonic happiness, which is transitory and very shallow. What really makes us human is actually having purpose and meaning. And I would suggest to you that that is out of a love narrative. How can I be of service? How can I help others? And the reason that is the case is because as a species, we actually have a genetic imperative to care. And as we evolved as a species, unlike other species that run off into the jungle or into the forest, our species requires us to care for them. And we are rewarded for that caring and that time and the resources expended through oxytocin, which of course many call the love hormone or bonding hormone. And that actually stimulates your pleasure and reward centers. So when you care, you feel good. And as we evolve from the nuclear family to tribes, if you will, which typically had 50 to 150 members, if somebody was not doing their job because you're living in a hostile environment, we had to be attuned to their suffering or their needs. And again, this desire to help people, to care for them, also was very important. And as a result, this is deeply embedded in us. In fact, our physiology, both in the brain and peripherally, functions at its best when you're in this caring mode or when the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. And this is, of course, your rest and digest system. So caring, having purpose, having meaning is really critical a component, because when you act in that fashion, the satisfaction or the happiness you get is much more prolonged and it's much deeper.
Absolutely, so well said. Now, of course, you're doing things at a very top level and helping people with these wonderful books and all of your teachings. What kind of advice do you give to people that want to follow in your footsteps and do what you do?
Well, I think really is to understand what our purpose is, and that's to be of service, to care for others. That will make us happy. It will make us fulfilled. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what I do. Everybody has different talents and abilities. And what I would say is to find what that talent or ability is in the context of helping or being service to others. Sometimes, as an example, it could be a coach. Other times it could be a teacher. Other times it could be involved in an activity which helps people. It could be being a police officer. Obviously, my path has been chosen based on my own abilities, and that's wonderful. But I certainly, one, don't expect people necessarily to follow exactly my path because it's unique to me. And two, there are many, many paths that lead to purpose and meaning. And, sometimes people get caught up in this narrative that they have to change the world. And frankly, I think being able to work within your own environment, you may not necessarily be able to change the world. Many of us don't necessarily do that. Yet within our own world, we can have a profound change. And that could be either within our families, our neighbors, our community. And those are just as important as world changing activities. Again, the fundamental key is what can I do with the abilities that I have to have a positive impact on those around me?
Yeah, love that. Now, my co-host Drew Pearson is one of our great Dallas Cowboys. He caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame, and I was so proud of him. And he wanted me to make sure that I asked you your Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it and it worked out for you. What do you suppose that was for you?
Well, I've had many of those moments, to be
Yeah.
frank with you, where you know, that idea of going for it, if you're going to make change, if you're going to have a profound impact, you have to hang over the abyss without a safety net. And that's just the way it is. And you have to have a deep, firm belief that the action you're taking is one that's so important that it's worth it. It's worth putting everything at risk. As an example, when I applied to medical school, my grade point average was 2.53.
Hmm.
And at that time, the average grade point average for acceptance was 3.79. And I had this very, very deep belief that I was meant to be a physician and that I could impact the lives of others. Yet, and this is what's sad oftentimes, friends of mine would repeatedly tell me, "You're never going to get into medical school. Your GPA is bad. Why do you think this? It's a waste of people's time." And in fact, at my college, you had to get a letter of recommendation from the pre-med committee before you could actually even apply.
Hmm.
And I went to get an appointment, and the secretary said to me, "I'm not giving you an appointment because it's a waste of everyone's time." Now, fortunately, I had the wherewithal to say, "I appreciate your opinion, but I'm not leaving here until you give me that appointment." And in some ways, that was the Hail Mary, right? I refused to accept what she felt was correct because it wasn't correct. And this ultimately led me to getting that appointment. But in some ways, there's the second part of that Hail Mary, which I walked into a room and there were three people at the end of a long table. And the fellow in charge took my file. He stood up, threw it on the table, and he said, "Say what you have to say so we can get this over with." And again, how intimidating for a 20-year-old to be placed in that position, which is demeaning, humiliating, and in many ways one-sided in terms of the power structure. Now, fortunately, I said to this individual, "What right do you have uh, to judge me? There's not one bit of evidence that having above a average level of intelligence that this has any relationship to completing medical school." And in fact, oftentimes, many students who are 4.0 students have fundamental personality disorders that actually limit their ability to care, to be compassionate, to connect. And I said, "I refuse to allow you to judge me based on a grade point average when you know nothing about me." And I continued for about 20 minutes. And at the end of it, they were all crying. And the reason they were crying is I refused to let them objectify me. They had to see me as a whole human being. And as a result, they gave me the highest letter of recommendation. And so you have to put yourself out there. You have to sit there and be fearless and have a resolve about what you want to accomplish. And ultimately, I did get into med school. I applied to one med school. And in fact, when that interaction with this pre-med committee afterward, the secretary who told me she wasn't going to give me an appointment, she handed me a brochure and she said, "Listen," and she was in this room as I had this interaction with these people. She said, "Listen, here's a brochure for a summer enrichment program at Tulane University for socioeconomically disadvantaged students." And she said, "The deadline has passed, but for you, I don't think it'll matter." And what happened is I called the lady up. She let me in the program. I applied to one medical school, which was Tulane, and I got accepted.
Wow.
And that was actually with that 2.53, and I actually did not graduate. They accepted me without a diploma even. And so it shows you that anything is possible. No one has the right to determine your future except for you. Now, if you fast forward many years ahead, after Hurricane Katrina, the dean of the medical school resigned. They closed the university or the medical school for 2 years. The students had to transfer to Houston to be at Baylor, and they were looking for a new dean. Well, and the library had been severely damaged. Well, here I actually endowed the new dean's chair and repaired the library and ended up being one of the largest donors at Tulane. So today, the dean of the medical school is actually the Doty professor. So, no one has the right to judge what you can do, your abilities, or what you can accomplish. And I think that story is a powerful one, and adds to a number of stories of people who, by every criteria, have overcome extraordinary odds to accomplish things because they believe in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. It's amazing. Well, we talk about that on the show a lot, the success mindset that you have to have, whether or not you're feeling it or not. And, sometimes it's creative times we're a little harder on ourselves. So is there something that you keep in mind that keeps you on the right path always?
Well, I think there are two aspects because what can happen sometimes for people is they're so focused on accomplishing something that it becomes too important. And what I mean by that is if you're absolutely focused on accomplishing something, which leads you to sacrifice friendships, relationships, it's not worth it. I mean, what is it to be at the top of the mountain alone by yourself and estranged from people? So it all has to be in balance. Yes, to accomplish things that are hard, that are difficult, you do have to sacrifice. But at the same time, you have to understand you're a human being, and all of us need to connect with others, to be cared for, to care for others. And to accomplish a task where you sacrifice that, I don't think that is a correct decision, in my opinion.
Mhm. And so, back to the manifestation. What are some things that you did to make sure that this book was a success? Because it's hard to get one out there in the world, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know that. I mean, as an example, the average book, at least many years ago when I published Into the Magic Shop, or I should say, when I wrote and Into the Magic Shop, the average number of books that were printed was about 2,500,
Mhm.
and and most of those did not even sell that many books. It was very unusual to even get an advance on a book. Yet, in fact, with the first book, I had an advance of 250,000, which
Mhm.
is unheard of, being a first-time author. So the thing, though, was that uh, first of all, I had no aspirations to be an author. An individual approached me, and I won't bore you with the entire story, but he made a compelling argument. And it interestingly turned out that he had been Richard Branson's agent, Nelson Mandela's agent, and Desmond Tutu's agent.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate to run into that individual who actually had been following me for a few years. But obviously, with his input and support and guidance, it allowed me to create a narrative that was compelling. And what I tell people, though, is everybody has a compelling story. It just has to be put in the nature of an arc of a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And everybody's story, if it's written correctly, can be very, very profound because everyone has struggled in their life. They've overcome hardship. They've been tested. So anybody's life obviously could potentially be very interesting. I was just fortunate in that the circumstances aligned. But again, the nature of how I think about things fundamentally relates to manifesting. All of
Mhm.
us are manifesting, but how do you embed your intention? And this is through a process of what we call value tagging. We connect importance to what we're embedding. And the best way to embed is one, um, utilizing your senses together to create a sense that what you're intending or wanting to manifest is important. And you do this by, as an example, writing it down. You're using your hand. You're holding the pen. You're sensing the pen, and it's connected to this narrative. And then you read it silently. You read it aloud. You visualize how you see yourself being. And each of these things further reinforces the narrative and making it salient, if you will, to your subconscious. And this is what's critically important, is repetition. And as you probably heard, there's a statement that what fires together wires together. This is how you create and strengthen neural pathways. And once you are able to embed it in your subconscious, this activates a network in our brain called the default mode network, which is self-referential and is associated with mind wandering and daydreaming. But it's where you create narratives about who you see yourself being. And once that idea or intention is placed there, then this activates what we call your salience network. We've made it salient. We've made it important to us. Once that happens, we activate our attention network. So on a subconscious level, now it's constantly scouring your environment for possibilities that may allow you to manifest your intent. And once that happens, then the executive control network takes over to realize that intention. And this is very, very important. And this is how it works. This is how you maximize your ability to manifest. And like I said, everyone's manifesting. Most people are doing it unconsciously without any direction, or they're doing it based out of a fear narrative. But if you can align your purpose and your goals with the reality that our lives are meant to have meaning and purpose by caring for others, that's now out of a love mode. This is one where there's generosity, caring, connection, love. And this really is how you activate all of your cognitive systems to work together to manifest your intention. And this is why people will attribute these events to coincidence or synchronicities. But it's all because you have embedded it into your subconscious, and your subconscious is always looking for opportunities to manifest that intention.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, there's so much to discuss with you, but I know we've got to let you go soon. But first, I got to know, like, of course, maybe this is like asking someone who's having a baby at the hospital when their next baby is. But are you already working on another book, or is there another show or anything else that we have to look forward to coming up?
There's several things, damn it.
Good.
Excuse me. So I'll give you a list of some interesting things,
Good.
or at least I think are interesting. So there is a new book. The tentative title is, I hope nobody steals the title, but it's Gut Instinct, the Neuroscience of Intuition and Why It Matters. And, that seems like a natural extension of this manifestation conversation. And there's a lot of neuroscience behind this. The other is I've been working on a mental health app that utilizes a proprietary conversational AI knowledge base, which is connected to an emotion detection engine that uses voice, sentiment, and facial recognition that's combined with a human avatar. And it's meant for those suffering from stress and anxiety and depression and loneliness of living in the modern world, and acts as a mental health companion or coach. So that's recently launched, at least in regard to allowing people to use it. And that is found at Happi, HAPPI.ai. And then I am working on finding an individual to fund an International Compassion Prize, different, obviously, from the Peace Prize, and then also an International Compassion Corps. As you know, the Peace Corps was designed with the idea of the first world, the United States, quote unquote, being a benefit or service to the third world.
Mm-hmm.
My vision is actually an international corps that allows anyone from anywhere to be of service in any place. And the purpose is for people from the third world to recognize that they can be of service even in a first world. And I'm sure you're familiar with the reality that in the United States, and probably not far from where you are, there are people who are homeless, there are people who are hungry, and it allows people to appreciate that the United States or first world countries certainly don't have all the answers, and that we can learn from anyone, anywhere. And it creates this cadre of individuals who have a global outlook of how can I be of service to the world. And I think that's very, very important.
Oh, I love that. And it's got to be just one of life's great joys to be able to help people as much as you have been. I know my mother-in-law gives away your books often.
You know, it's funny because so many people go, you know, I've given at least 10 copies of your book away, which of course I'm very appreciative of. And really, the book, as I think you know, now the first book was a New York Times bestseller. It was a bestseller in 8 countries, been translated into 36 languages, and actually probably more changes that BTS, the Korean pop music band, actually used as the basis for their third album,
Yes.
Love Yourself Tear. And in that album is a song called Magic Shop.
Yes. Yeah, and it's great just to have it.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, but such a wonderful
So
thing, and
there you have it.
yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your time and the wonderful answers, and to continue and inspire people. And we'll look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.
No, that's wonderful. And just let me say that every one of us, no matter our circumstance,
Yes,
have the ability to improve the life of at least one person every day. Never forget that.
beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everything. We'll see you soon. And safe
Sounds
travels.
good. You
Thank you.
take care. Great
All
chatting
right,
with
you
you.
too. Bye
Bye.
bye.